All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about how a new AI framework is poised to fix one of the most annoying parts of going to the doctor. All that paperwork you do beforehand. It's all about making that visit smarter, right from the very beginning.
You know the feeling, right? You get handed a clipboard and you're answering the same questions about your medical history that you've answered a million times. It's a frustration we all share, but it actually points to a much bigger, more systemic problem.
And that frustration you feel, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. The real issue is the incredible administrative load on doctors, mostly thanks to electronic medical records, or EMRs. These were supposed to make everything easier, but in many ways, they've just created a huge mountain of digital paperwork. And get this, some studies show that for every single hour a doctor spends with a patient, they can spend more than an hour on tasks related to those EMRs. That's precious time that could be used for, actually talking to people and figuring out what's wrong. So the obvious question is, in this age of incredible AI, why can't we just feed our medical records to something like GPT-4 and have it create a perfect, personalized list of questions? Well, it turns out the problem is a whole lot trickier than it seems. The researchers behind this new method use a really great analogy. They say a raw medical record isn't a neat, organized recipe. No, it's more like a finished meal. It's this complex, messy dish where all the symptoms, diagnoses, and timelines are all jumbled together. And this is the core of the problem. If you just show an AI the finished meal, that messy medical record, it gets confused trying to guess the recipe. It misses things. But this new approach is so much smarter. It doesn't guess. It first deconstructs the entire meal, breaking it down into every single ingredient before it even tries to figure out what to do next. So, how does this new recipe for understanding medical records actually work? It's a really elegant three-step framework that's designed to bring order to all that chaos. Okay, step one is breaking the record down into what the researchers call atomic assertions. It's a fancy term, but just think of them as the individual ingredients, the smallest possible medical fact you can pull out. So instead of a long paragraph, the AI just extracts simple things like patient has a persistent headache. But of course, a pile of ingredients doesn't tell you the whole story. So next, the AI builds something called a personal causal network. Really, it's just a map. It connects the dots between all those tiny facts, starting to show how one thing might have led to another, building out your unique health story. So you see, it's this critical three-stage process. First, it extracts the facts. Second, it understands how they're all connected. And only then, as the very last step, does it use that deep understanding to generate a truly personalized questionnaire. The key is, it understands before it asks. This all sounds great on paper, but the real question is, does it actually work? Well, the researchers put it to the test, and frankly, the results are pretty amazing. So check this out. When they just gave the raw medical text to a standard AI, it only managed to cover about 42% of the important facts. This new structured framework, it captured 84.2%. That is literally double the comprehension, a huge difference. And the researchers themselves basically said that this massive gap proves how hard it is to just throw a powerful AI at messy, unstructured clinical notes and expect good results. It's the framework, the process that unlocks the AI's real power. Okay, so it blows a simple AI out of the water. That's great. But what about the gold standard? How does this thing stack up against a questionnaire written by an experienced doctor? That's the real test. Now, these results are fascinating. When it came to covering all the key facts, the framework was actually slightly better than the human experts. That's incredible. Now, it's important to be honest here. The doctor's questions were rated just a little higher on diagnostic relevance, that kind of clinical gut feeling. But then, look at the time. The AI took about 10 minutes, the human experts, almost 34 minutes. So it's nearly as good and over 3 times faster. So, okay, we've seen all the impressive data, but what does this actually mean for you, for your next trip to the doctor? Let's talk about the real-world impact. Well, this could lead to a future where you spend way less time filling out those repetitive forms. Your doctor gets a smart, relevant summary of your situation before you even walk in the room. This frees up so much time for what actually matters, having a real conversation, discussing your options, and getting to the bottom of things. It all points to a higher quality of care for everybody. When you boil it all down, the big takeaway here isn't just about building a bigger, more powerful AI. The real innovation is the intelligent process that guides the AI. Deconstructing the problem before you try to solve it, that's the game changer.
And that really leaves us with a final question to think about. This framework fixed the pre-consultation process, so it makes you wonder, what other bottlenecks in healthcare aren't waiting for some magical new AI to be invented, but are just waiting for a more intelligent process to guide the amazing technology we already have?